Now, if you are a game console company, imagine you are wanting to enter the game console industry. Let's say you are not Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo. This is the kind of investment that you would have to make in order to deliver a new hardware platform. Somewhere between $1 and $4 billion to develop the chips and technology to compete with the current market and to push the market forward. You'd have to spend about $100 million a year supporting your operating system and firmware upgrades and network platform. And the network platform itself, in order to compete with the likes of Sony or Microsoft in their investments to date and the amount of content that they have created for their network platforms, would probably cost you about $1 billion. And then your games development is going to range anything from $1 million to $100 million of risk for yourselves or for your third parties. So hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of investment would be required to enter the game console business, which is why I don't think anybody is going to try. I think we have probably seen the last of the traditional game console companies already in the market. I don't think we're going to see a new entrant who is going to be able to compete at the level that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have already established. And this is a bit unfair, and to my friends in the media who are in the room, I'm not asking you to suggest that I'm quoting this as a roulette wheel of risk, but there is a certain amount of gamble involved in being in the games console industry today anyway, because you've got to invest $1 to $4 billion in this new hardware platform. And by the way, Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft have got to spend this kind of money to get to their next generation as well. And then you launch the hardware at a loss. The first few million units that you sell cost you more money than you get from the retailer. You then have to sell as many as you possibly can at potentially an unmarketable high price, meaning your price is so high that not the entire world is interested in your product. And then you have to increase a very key economic dynamic in the business, which is the software to hardware ratio. What that means is how many pieces of software do your consumers buy on that platform? Because that is what generates your profit, because you make your money from the software and from the peripherals. And then eventually, if everything goes well, if all of the other parts of the quadrant have been successful, you will make money from hardware because you've got so much volume that you can cost reduce down to a point where you can be profitable on the hardware. This is why on PlayStation 2, as an example, when Sony introduced the console in 2000, retail price was this is kind of public information, but it was some hundreds of dollars less than the actual cost of the machine. But that very quickly changed. So at $300, Sony was losing money on each console, retail price. And eventually they cost reduced down to the point where at $99, they're making a very nice profit. So it is possible to do that, but everything else has to work well. And eventually you make money from hardware, you expand the market so that the whole world is playing your console, and guess what? You spin the wheel again and you invest another $1 to $4 billion and go around the circle one more time. Each time you do this, it has to be perfect execution on every one of those points. And it's a highly risky business that only the very rich or the very brave would be entering into. So here's a question for you. Who thinks that you'll be able to play Modern Warfare 2 in a browser? Show of hands, maybe. Does everybody understand the question, first of all? What I mean is, can you get to launch a web browser and pretty quickly, not necessarily instantaneously, but within a few seconds, play a game that is of the current quality of Modern Warfare 2? Now, this is a completely mocked up screenshot, but I think the answer is yes, and I think it will happen within the next 5 to 10 years. You will get easily this level of game quality inside a web browser page, on your mobile platform, on your iPad, future successor, and we will be able to deliver that level of immersion directly into any kind of screen that a consumer has. And what's powering this is a real gathering storm of kind of the browser wars for the 21st century. Now, those of us who are a bit long in the tooth will remember the browser war from the 1990s. And this was where Netscape and Microsoft were going head to head to try and own the web browser market and deliver the internet browser. When web browsers first came out, these were products that you purchased in stores, which is kind of a weird thought. You know, you'd go and buy a web browser for $40 in a retail store on a disk. Obviously, they're now all free. And that war ended up in the courts in America because of anti-competition. But the gathering storm that I'm talking about, the war that I'm talking about, is the technology that is going to go into a web browser that is going to power very rich, very impressive media and gameplay and graphics, all of which we as game developers and the game industry are going to benefit from. And you've got people like Adobe, who are doing their Molehill project for putting 3D in Flash, which is super impressive. If anybody has had time to go and check out the demos that are available, it's really important that you kind of get up to speed on what's happening there, because Adobe, obviously with like 97% of the web browsers in the world have Flash installed. They have this incredible distribution platform. And if they can get very high quality 3D into the browser, that's a very compelling platform for developers to use. Then there are specialist companies like Unity who are doing a brilliant job in creating not just the web player, but also the end-to-end game development tools and technology that goes into it. HTML5, WebGL, people like Google and Microsoft with billions and billions of dollars to spend behind this. I don't care who wins. I don't actually have a preference for who is going to win this war. All I know is that somebody is going to win, and somebody, perhaps in conjunction with one or two of these technologies, or maybe something that we don't yet know, is going to deliver console-level 3D graphics and video and audio into a web browser for the world. That will be a tipping point for the evolution of our industry that will accelerate what we can do in a browser, and I think will create a next-generation platform for games. And that platform doesn't have to be on a computer, a laptop, or a mobile phone, or an iPad. It could be on your television. And I'd just like to focus on this for a second, that you've got some of the world's largest consumer electronics companies who the top 5 TV vendors, Sony, Panasonic, Samsung, LG, and I think Sharp is number 5, the top 5 companies sell about 200 million units of their higher-end televisions worldwide every year. So that's way more than any game console platform would sell. And those televisions are all being developed with web capability, network capability, and internet capability, and app capability in the TV. I don't know if anybody's bought a TV of this type in the last 6 months, but 1080p is kind of the cool technology that people talk about now. In a year or two, it'll be how powerful are the 3D graphics in your TV? How powerful is the web capability of your TV? And this will deliver a new platform for perhaps a more casual audience. It won't be the highest technology games that will be available on this platform, but it will still be a very compelling platform with over 200 million people being added to it every year. And the application of the world is here to stay. Everybody's got an app store. There are hundreds of them. I mean, I spent just a few minutes preparing this slide, and you can just go Google app stores, tell me how many there are, and you just kind of come up with hundreds of them. Although I did like the difference between the PlayStation App Store shopping bag that you can't see into, and the Android Google App Store that you can just see a little bit into. I don't know whether I should read too much into that, but I just thought it was quite interesting. But Samsung, LG, BlackBerry, obviously the Apple App Store, Steam as a direct-to-client distribution mechanism, obviously what Microsoft have been doing with Marketplace, Ovion, Nokia, and hundreds others. This is a trend that is only going to continue. This is not just finished, this is just starting. And this brings opportunity. It means that you as developers can publish your products directly to consumers through these stores. These stores will take a small percentage of the revenue, but that's to be expected. The downside is there's tens and tens and tens of thousands of products on these stores. So getting discovery is going to be the big challenge for any developer who is publishing this way. How do you connect your product to your audience? And I think that what we're going to see develop over the next few years are very smart technologies and marketing mechanisms which are loosely in kind of the category of discovery engines and recommendation engines, become super valuable companies and super powerful companies. The next trend that I have a particular preference or interest in is user-generated content. And I want to put this in context of why the web as a platform for the world, for humanity, grew so quickly. The web grew because anybody connected to the web could be a contributor to the web. A web browser was, by definition, a bilateral, multi-dimensional way of communicating with other people. Anybody can upload a video to YouTube. Anybody can comment on a blog. Anybody can upload a photo to Flickr. Anybody can put a posting on their Facebook page. And that creates the network effect, where the power of a network is measured by the square of the number of users on that network. And that's why the World Wide Web is now billions of people around the world. Now, the tools to do that in the web were relatively simple. The tools to do this in games are relatively complex. But when you get it right, the results are pretty transformational. And Little Big Planet is a good example. When we were planning this product at Sony, we had no idea how many people would create levels for Little Big Planet. Because it was relatively hard and specialist work to do, we had no idea how big a universe there would be. And so we just stuck our fingers in the air and guessed. And we thought that maybe 1% of the users of that game would create and share a level. And the other 99% would be the beneficiaries of that work. And they would enjoy that kind of fun experience that somebody else had created. So if, to put that into sort of numbers, you sell 1 million units of the game, that means you would generate 10,000 additional levels. So generating 10,000 levels would take an army of employees. And so this was a very efficient way of adding content to the game. The end result was closer to 100%. There are closer, in fact, there are about as many levels out there as there are copies of the game sold. So that now, not all of them are great, and I know that some of you will have played the game and realized that. But the point is, anybody can create and contribute. And I think that has helped create a positive economy for that game. It's the same for Spore and The Sims. And I think it's the same for games like Forza Motorsport, where you can have some kind of customization and personality into the game.